The pen was already in my hand when everything stopped. My daughter stood beside me, smiling at the bank clerk as if nothing unusual was happening. She told me the papers were simple, just routine documents. Something about updating records. I believed her. After 55 years of life and decades of raising that child, I had never imagined that the papers in front of me were about to take everything I owned. My home, my savings, my future. And the strange part was this. The person who saved me was not family. It was a quiet cashier standing behind the counter who suddenly said 5 words that froze the entire room. Please wait. Something is wrong. That moment changed my life. And what happened after that revealed a secret my daughter thought I would never find out. The bank smelled like polished wood and printer ink. The kind of quiet place where people trust numbers more than people. I sat across the counter holding a pen that felt heavier than it should. My daughter stood beside me with a calm smile. The same smile I remembered from school photos, birthday dinners, and the day she graduated. Nothing about her expression suggested anything unusual. She leaned closer and pointed to the line on the paper. Just sign here, she said. I did not question it. Children ask their parents for help all the time. A signature for paperwork. A form for property records. Something small. That was what she told me earlier that morning. Mom, Dad, the bank just needs updated documents for the house. It will make everything easier later. Easier later. Those words sounded reasonable. At 55, I had spent most of my life solving problems for other people. Work, bills, raising a child alone after my partner passed away 15 years earlier. Trust had become a habit. So I walked into the bank believing this visit would take 10 minutes. Now I sat at the counter with the papers in front of me. The cashier behind the desk looked young, calm, focused. They were typing something into the computer while glancing between the screen and the documents my daughter handed over. I noticed something strange. The typing slowed down. My daughter noticed it too. Is everything okay? She asked quickly. The cashier nodded politely. Yes, just reviewing the paperwork. The pen remained in my hand. Sign here. That was all I needed to do. Still, something small bothered me. The document looked longer than I expected. Several pages. Legal language filling every inch. I cleared my throat. What exactly is this for again? My daughter answered immediately. Just property records. The bank updates ownership structures sometimes. It is normal. Ownership structures. That phrase sounded more complicated than she had described earlier. The cashier glanced up again. Their eyes moved from the paper to my daughter and then back to me. A pause stretched across the counter. Not long, just long enough to feel strange. Would you like me to explain the document before you sign? The cashier asked. My daughter laughed lightly. It is really nothing complicated. We already discussed everything. She turned toward me with a reassuring tone. Just routine paperwork. Routine. That word again. The cashier slowly turned one of the pages. Another pause. I noticed their eyebrows tightened slightly as they read a section near the bottom. My daughter shifted her weight. Is there a problem? The cashier did not answer immediately. Instead, they looked directly at me. May I ask you a quick question? Of course, I said. Did someone explain that this document transfers full ownership of your property and financial accounts? The pen slipped slightly in my fingers. Transfers what? My daughter spoke quickly. It is just technical wording. The cashier did not look at her this time. Their attention stayed on me. This document gives another person full legal control over your house, savings accounts, and investment accounts. The room suddenly felt colder. I turned slowly toward my daughter. What does that mean? Her smile tightened. It just simplifies management of everything. Simplifies. I stared at the pages again. Line after line of legal terms I had not read. You said it was routine. It is. The cashier spoke again, carefully. Once signed, you would no longer legally own those assets. The words landed like stones. No longer own. My house. My savings. Everything I spent decades building. I looked back at my daughter. Her expression changed. Not fear. Not guilt. Annoyance. Why are you confusing things? She said to the cashier. This is family business. The cashier remained calm. I am required to confirm understanding before processing transfers of this size. Transfer. The word echoed in my head. I slowly placed the pen back on the counter. I did not agree to transfer anything. My daughter leaned closer, voice low. You are overreacting. The cashier quietly turned another page and pointed to a paragraph. This section assigns permanent authority to the beneficiary. Beneficiary, my daughter. The realization arrived slowly, like a door opening in a dark room. This was not about paperwork. This was about ownership. Everything. I looked at her again. Why did you tell me it was routine? Her patience disappeared. Because you would not understand the legal details. The bank suddenly felt silent. People moved in the background. Printers hummed. But inside my head, everything slowed down. Years of trust. Years of sacrifice. All sitting on a counter waiting for a signature. And my own child had tried to take it. The cashier gently moved the document away from me. I recommend that you do not sign anything today. My daughter slammed her hand on the counter. This is ridiculous. The cashier pressed a button under the desk. What happened next was something my daughter never expected. Because within minutes, the bank manager walked toward us. And the moment they looked at the documents, the situation became far bigger than anyone in that room had imagined. But the truth about my daughter's plan had not even started to surface yet. And what the bank discovered next would turn this simple visit into a legal battle that would change all of our lives. The manager arrived within 2 minutes, though it felt longer. A tall person in a dark suit stepped behind the counter and quietly picked up the stack of papers the cashier had moved aside. Their eyes scanned the pages slowly, the way someone reads something that could cause serious problems. My daughter folded her arms. "This is unnecessary," she said. The manager did not answer right away. They finished reading the last page and then looked at me. "Did you request this transfer today?" "No," I said. "Were the details explained to you before arriving here?" "No," my daughter stepped forward. "My parent already agreed. We talked about it earlier." The manager asked another question. "Did your parent receive independent legal advice before signing these documents?" Silence followed. My daughter glanced toward me quickly. "That is not required." The manager shook their head slightly. "For a transfer of assets this large, confirmation is required." I felt my heartbeat growing heavier. "Assets this large?" I asked. The manager turned the document so I could see the summary page. Numbers filled the section near the bottom. The value listed for the house. My retirement savings. My investment account. Everything I owned was written there in cold black ink. The total amount made my stomach tighten. I had spent 30 years building that security. Overtime shifts. Missed holidays. Working double hours after my partner died. The manager spoke again. "These documents move full control of all listed assets to the beneficiary immediately after signature." I looked at the name under the beneficiary line. My daughter. The word daughter suddenly felt different in my mind. My daughter interrupted again. "This is ridiculous. It is family property." The manager placed the documents flat on the desk. "Family transfers still require informed consent." My daughter's voice sharpened. My parent was about to sign. The cashier spoke quietly. They had not read the transfer clause yet. My daughter turned toward the cashier with visible irritation. "You should have just processed the paperwork." The manager responded before the cashier could speak. "Our staff did exactly what they were supposed to do." I sat there listening, but my mind had started moving backward through years of memory. The day my daughter was born. The tiny hospital room. The promise I made to protect that child from every hardship life could bring. After my partner died, the responsibility doubled overnight. School tuition, food on the table, a roof over our heads. I worked until my hands developed permanent aches. I sold my old car once just to cover a semester of college fees for her. Every decision in my adult life had been built around giving that child stability. And now that same child had brought me into a bank to quietly take everything. The manager's voice pulled me back. "Did you prepare these documents with a lawyer?" My daughter hesitated for half a second. "Yes." "Who is the lawyer?" "That information is private." The manager nodded slowly. "I will still need the name." My daughter sighed and pulled a folded paper from her bag. The manager read it carefully. Then they turned toward the cashier. "Please pause all activity related to this account." The cashier nodded and typed something into the system. My daughter stepped closer to the counter. "You cannot block a family transfer." The manager answered calmly. "We can delay any transaction where the account holder shows uncertainty." I said, "There is no uncertainty." The manager looked directly at me. "Would you like this transfer to happen today?" "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. My daughter stared at me. "You are making this complicated." The manager slid the documents into a folder. "This will not proceed today." The anger in my daughter's face surfaced quickly. You are interfering with private family decisions. The manager's voice remained steady. We are protecting our customer. The cashier quietly placed the folder behind the counter. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then my daughter turned toward me. You promised to help me. I promised to help you, I said slowly. Not give away everything I own. She shook her head. You do not understand the situation. Then explain it. Another pause filled the space between us. Instead of explaining, she grabbed her bag. This conversation is not finished. She walked toward the exit without looking back. The glass door closed behind her with a sharp sound. I remained seated. The manager leaned slightly closer. Do you feel safe handling your finances on your own? Yes, I said quietly. The cashier looked relieved. The manager continued. These documents were prepared to move control immediately. That level of transfer often requires legal verification. My mind struggled to catch up with what had almost happened. What happens now? I asked. The manager closed the folder. We document the incident. The cashier added softly. And we recommend speaking with a lawyer who represents you alone. I nodded slowly. A strange feeling moved through me. Not anger. Something heavier. Betrayal has a way of changing the way you look at memories. Suddenly, every conversation with my daughter during the past month replayed in my head. The sudden urgency about updating paperwork. The late-night phone calls asking questions about my accounts. The way she insisted on handling everything herself. Pieces of the puzzle started fitting together. The manager stood up. One more thing. Yes. They placed a small card on the counter. This lawyer specializes in financial coercion cases. Financial coercion. Hearing those words made the situation feel even darker. I picked up the card slowly. The cashier looked at me with genuine concern. You were very close to signing. I stared at the empty space where the documents had been. Yes, I said quietly. Very close. If that cashier had stayed silent for 30 more seconds, my life would have changed in a single signature. But what I still did not know was this. Those documents were only one piece of a much larger plan. And the truth behind my daughter's actions was far worse than a simple transfer of property. Because 3 days later, I received a phone call that revealed something terrifying. My daughter had already tried to sell my house, and she had been planning it for months. 3 days passed after the bank incident. Those days felt unusually quiet. My daughter did not call. She did not send messages. That silence bothered me more than anger would have. When people know they are wrong, they sometimes disappear for a while. I kept wondering what she was doing during that silence. On the fourth morning, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. I answered. Good morning. Am I speaking with the property owner of Maple Ridge Drive? Yes. This is Daniel Harper from Ridgeway Realty. I am calling about the home listing your daughter submitted. My heart stopped for a moment. My daughter submitted what? A home listing request for sale. We were reviewing documents before scheduling property photos. The room suddenly felt smaller. My house is not for sale. There was a pause on the line. Your daughter told us she had full authority. Authority. The same word written on those bank documents. I leaned against the kitchen counter. When was this request submitted? Last week. Last week. That meant she had already started the process before taking me to the bank. My voice came out slower. Did she send you paperwork? Yes. A preliminary ownership transfer document. Ownership. Transfer. She had been moving ahead with the plan before I even knew it existed. I felt a heavy pressure building behind my eyes. That document was never signed. Another pause followed. I see. The realtor said carefully. May I ask if there is a dispute regarding the property? Yes, I answered. There is. The call ended politely, but the damage was already done. The truth had begun revealing itself piece by piece. My daughter had not walked into that bank hoping I would sign. She expected me to sign. She had already built the next steps around that signature. Selling my house. Taking control of my savings. Moving forward before I even realized what was happening. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. The house around me held 30 years of memories. The hallway where my daughter learned to walk. The living room where birthday cakes were placed every year. The small bedroom where she studied late into the night during college. Every corner carried pieces of our life. And someone had quietly tried to sell it. My phone rang again later that afternoon. This time the caller ID showed my daughter's name. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice sounded calm. Did the bank call you? No, they contacted my lawyer, she said quickly. I remained silent. She continued. They said you refused to sign the transfer. Yes. You embarrassed me. Embarrassed. That word echoed strangely. You tried to take everything I own. I was organizing our future. Our future? I asked. You are getting older. I am 55. That still means planning ahead. Planning ahead. I took a slow breath. Planning ahead does not mean secretly transferring ownership of my house. You are misunderstanding. Then explain the realtor who called me this morning. Silence filled the phone line. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then her tone changed. Who called you? A real estate agent. Another long pause followed. You were not supposed to hear about that yet. Those words landed like a punch. Not supposed to hear. So the plan had stages. Bank transfer first. Property sale next. Money movement after that. My voice became steady. How long have you been planning this? You are making it sound bad. How long? She hesitated again. Several months. Months. That meant every dinner we shared during that time carried a hidden agenda. Every friendly conversation. Every visit. All leading toward a single moment inside a bank. I closed my eyes. Why? You have assets sitting there doing nothing. They are my retirement. You do not need that much. Her words felt colder with every sentence. I worked 30 years for that. You are thinking emotionally. Emotionally. That word told me everything. My daughter was not speaking like family. She was speaking like someone reviewing numbers on a spreadsheet. I asked one more question. Did you plan to tell me after everything was transferred? She answered honestly this time. Yes. The honesty hurt more than any lie. You would have been upset at first, she continued. But later you would understand. Understand. Understand that my house had been sold. Understand that my savings were gone. Understand that the life I built was no longer mine. I spoke slowly. The bank stopped the transfer. I know. And the house is not for sale. That can change. Something shifted inside me then. A quiet realization. My daughter still believed this plan could succeed. She had not given up. You need to think carefully about what you are doing, she said. The warning in her voice was clear. This conversation was not about regret. It was about strategy. What happens if I refuse everything? I asked. Another pause followed. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strange confidence. You might not have that choice. The line went silent. She had already ended the call. I sat there holding the phone long after the screen went dark. My daughter believed I might not have a choice. That meant she still had something planned. Something I had not seen yet. Later that evening, I opened the card the bank manager gave me. The lawyer's name was printed clearly across the front. I stared at it for several minutes. Then I picked up the phone and scheduled an appointment. Because if my daughter believed I had no choice, then there was only one way to find out what she had already put in motion. And the answer waiting inside that lawyer's office was about to reveal a second document. One that carried a forged signature with my name written across the bottom. The lawyer's office sat on the third floor of an old brick building downtown. The elevator ride felt longer than it should. My mind kept repeating the last sentence my daughter said on the phone. You might not have that choice. Those words had not sounded like anger. They sounded like confidence. Confidence usually means preparation. When the elevator doors opened, I walked down a quiet hallway and found the office listed on the card the bank manager gave me. A small brass plate beside the door carried the name. I knocked once. Come in, a calm voice answered. The office looked organized and quiet. Shelves of legal books lined the walls. A desk near the window held several open files. The lawyer stood and shook my hand. Thank you for coming. I sat down. Slowly. The weight of everything that happened during the past few days still pressed heavily on my mind. The lawyer listened carefully while I explained the bank visit. The documents. The attempted transfer. The conversation with the realtor. The phone call with my daughter. I spoke without rushing, describing every detail I could remember. The lawyer took notes, but rarely interrupted. When I finished, the room became quiet. Then the lawyer opened a drawer and removed a thin folder. I want to show you something. The folder slid across the desk toward me. Inside were copies of documents. I recognized the format immediately. Legal transfer forms. Property authority paperwork. But one detail made my stomach tighten. A signature appeared on the bottom line. My name. I stared at it for several seconds. That is not my handwriting. I know, the lawyer said. You have seen this before? Yes. The lawyer leaned back slightly. Your daughter's attorney submitted these documents 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. That meant the process had started long before the bank visit. What do these papers say? I asked. They claim you voluntarily transferred property authority to your daughter. Voluntarily. The word felt bitter. I never signed that. I believe you. The lawyer pointed to the signature again. It is a forgery. Seeing my name written in someone else's handwriting felt deeply disturbing. A signature carries identity, trust, permission. Someone had tried to steal all three. How did you get these? I asked. They were filed during a preliminary ownership review, so the bank would eventually receive them. Yes. The lawyer closed the folder gently. This explains why your daughter sounded confident on the phone. The puzzle pieces started fitting together again. She already believed control of my property was secured. All she needed was the bank transfer to move the money. The forged document would help justify everything afterward. I felt a cold realization settle in my chest. My daughter had built a plan with multiple layers. If the bank transfer worked, everything would move quietly. If someone questioned it later, she would show this document. A document claiming I agreed. The lawyer continued speaking. There is another issue. What issue? The property listing. My shoulders tightened. Yes. The realtor called me. The lawyer opened another file. This sale request was submitted with supporting documentation. More papers slid across the desk. Once again I saw my name. Once again the signature looked wrong. The room felt silent except for the ticking of a small clock on the wall. She forged my signature twice. Possibly more. The lawyer folded their hands. These actions fall under financial fraud and coercion. Hearing those words spoken aloud made the situation heavier. Fraud. Coercion. Not family misunderstanding. Not simple pressure. A crime. I asked a quiet question. What happens now? The lawyer answered clearly. We stop the property sale immediately. That is good. Then we prepare legal action. Legal action. That phrase carried serious weight. Against my daughter? Yes. For a moment my mind returned to memories again. School mornings. Helping her with homework. Watching her walk across the stage at graduation. Parents often imagine protecting their children forever. Very few imagine standing against them inside a courtroom. The lawyer noticed my hesitation. This is difficult. Yes. But the longer this continues, the more damage it can cause. I nodded slowly. What would she gain if the plan worked? The lawyer opened a final document. This explains that. The page showed a transfer destination. An overseas financial account. My eyes narrowed. What is that? A bank account located outside the country. My daughter had not planned to hold the money here. She planned to move everything somewhere harder to trace. The lawyer spoke carefully. Once assets leave the country, recovery becomes extremely difficult. A deep anger began forming in my chest. Not loud anger. The quiet kind that grows slowly. She would have taken everything, I said. Yes. And disappeared with it. That appears to be the plan. The lawyer closed the file. We need to move quickly. What do we do first? We notify the bank. They already stopped the transfer. That helps. Then the lawyer added something unexpected. But this situation will not stay inside a bank office. I looked up. What do you mean? The lawyer's voice remained steady. Forgery connected to financial control often leads to criminal investigation. Criminal investigation. That meant police. Courtrooms. Testimony. Public records. My daughter had turned a family situation into something far larger. The lawyer stood and walked toward the window. Your daughter and her lawyer will likely challenge you. Challenge me? Yes. They may claim you agreed earlier. With forged signatures? They will try. The lawyer turned back toward me. But there is something they did not expect. What? The cashier who stopped the bank transfer. I remembered the quiet person behind the counter. The one who asked a single question before everything changed. The lawyer continued. That cashier may become the most important witness in this entire case. I leaned back slowly, because the next chapter of this story was no longer about family conflict. It was about something much bigger. A courtroom, and a truth that my daughter had worked very hard to hide. But once the trial started, that truth would begin coming out piece by piece. And the first person called to speak would not be me. It would be the cashier who stopped my signature. The bank looked different the second time I walked in. 3 days earlier I had entered that building believing I was signing harmless paperwork. Now every step felt heavier. The lawyer walked beside me. We need a statement from the cashier, they said quietly. I nodded. The person behind that counter had already changed the direction of my life once. Now their words might decide the direction of the entire case. The bank manager greeted us near the entrance. I expected you, they said. The lawyer shook hands with them and explained the situation again, including the forged documents. The manager listened carefully. This is more serious than we thought. Yes, the lawyer replied. We will need cooperation from your staff member who stopped the transaction. The manager nodded immediately. They already filed an internal report that day. That detail surprised me. An internal report? Yes, the manager said. Whenever staff interrupt a major transaction, we document everything. The lawyer looked pleased. That report could become valuable evidence. The manager gestured toward a small office near the back of the bank. Please come with me. We walked through the quiet lobby. Customers waited in line. Printers hummed softly. Conversations moved quietly between desks. The ordinary routine of the bank continued as if nothing dramatic had ever happened there. Inside the office, the cashier sat at a small desk reviewing paperwork. They looked up when we entered. Recognition crossed their face immediately. I remember you, they said. I smiled faintly. I remember you too. The manager spoke. This meeting is about the transaction you stopped last week. The cashier nodded. Yes. The lawyer introduced themselves and asked permission to discuss the details. The cashier agreed. What made you question the documents? The lawyer asked. The cashier leaned back slightly and thought for a moment. There were several small details. What details? The account holder looked uncertain. That answer surprised me. I thought I looked calm. You looked polite, the cashier explained. But you also asked what the document was for. Yes. That question usually appears before someone signs large transfers. The lawyer wrote notes quickly. What else caught your attention? The cashier opened a copy of their report. The wording in the transfer section. How so? It transferred everything immediately. The cashier paused briefly before continuing. That kind of document normally involves independent legal advice. I never received any, I said. I noticed that, the cashier replied. The lawyer leaned forward. Did the daughter pressure the account holder to sign? The cashier nodded slowly. Yes. Describe that moment. She pointed to the signature line quickly. She spoke before the account holder had time to read the document. My memory replayed the scene clearly. Sign here. Those were the exact words she used. The lawyer continued asking questions. Did the daughter attempt to interrupt your explanation? Yes. How? She said the paperwork was simple family business. The lawyer looked satisfied with the answer. That statement appears in your report? Yes. The cashier handed over the document. The lawyer reviewed the pages carefully. This is extremely helpful. The manager spoke quietly. Our staff member followed protocol exactly. The lawyer nodded. That protocol prevented a major financial crime. Hearing those words again made the situation feel heavier. Financial crime. The phrase sounded strange when connected to someone I raised. The cashier continued explaining their observations. There was another detail. What detail? The lawyer asked. The lawyer listed on the document. The room became quiet again. What about the lawyer? I asked. I recognized the name. My attention sharpened. You recognized it? Yes. The cashier turned another page in the report. That law office had previously submitted documents connected to a similar dispute. My lawyer looked interested. What type of dispute? Property transfer involving an elderly client. A strange feeling moved through the room. Was that case investigated? My lawyer asked. Yes. And? The transfer was reversed after evidence showed manipulation. The words hung in the air for a moment. My daughter's lawyer had been involved in another questionable transfer. That information could change everything. My lawyer closed the report slowly. This case may be larger than we expected. The manager agreed. We will cooperate fully. The cashier looked at me again. I am glad I asked that question. So am I said quietly. If they had not spoken at that exact moment, my life might already look very different. The lawyer gathered the documents. We will likely request your testimony. The cashier nodded. I will tell the truth. That answer carried more weight than they probably realized. Because inside a courtroom, small observations often become powerful evidence. The lawyer turned toward me. There is one more step. What step? We must notify the authorities about the forged documents. Police involvement now seemed unavoidable. The plan my daughter created had already crossed several legal lines. Forgery, fraud, attempted asset transfer, and possibly conspiracy. The manager walked us toward the exit. Just before leaving, the cashier spoke again. There was something else that day. I stopped. What was it? The cashier looked slightly uncertain. When your daughter realized the transfer would not happen, she made a phone call outside. Yes. She sounded angry. That is not surprising. But one sentence stood out. My lawyer leaned forward. What sentence? The cashier repeated the words slowly. She said, do not worry. The court documents are already prepared. The hallway became silent. Court documents. Prepared in advance. That meant something bigger was already moving behind the scenes. My lawyer's expression grew serious. If those documents exist, your daughter may already be planning a legal claim. A legal claim for what? I asked. The lawyer answered carefully. For control over your finances. My stomach tightened. You mean guardianship? Yes. The word echoed in my mind like a warning bell. Guardianship meant something terrifying. It meant someone convincing a court that I could not manage my own life. And if my daughter succeeded with that argument, she would gain control of everything without needing my signature at all. The fight ahead was no longer about a forged document. It was about proving something far more personal, that I was still capable of controlling my own life. And the courtroom battle that would decide that question was already beginning. The word guardianship stayed in my mind long after leaving the bank. My lawyer drove slowly through afternoon traffic while explaining what that word truly meant. Guardianship cases move through family court, they said. What does that involve? It involves someone asking a judge to declare that another adult cannot manage their personal or financial decisions. I stared through the window. And if the judge agrees? The guardian receives full authority over finances, property, and major life decisions. That description sounded disturbingly similar to the documents my daughter tried to make me sign. She was trying two different paths, I said quietly. Yes. If one failed, the other might succeed. My lawyer nodded. That level of planning suggests preparation. Preparation meant time. Time meant months. My daughter had spent months preparing ways to take control of everything I owned. We reached the lawyer's office again. Inside the meeting room, several papers already waited on the table. These arrived this morning, the lawyer said. The envelope carried a court stamp. My chest tightened slightly. Is that what I think it is? Yes. The lawyer opened the envelope and removed several pages. A guardianship petition filed by your daughter. The room felt colder. How can she claim that? The lawyer passed the documents across the table. I read slowly. The statements written there described me as confused, emotionally unstable, and incapable of handling financial matters. Every sentence felt like a stranger describing my life. She wrote this. I asked. Yes. Another line caught my attention. Supporting evidence included statements from a physician and a financial advisor. My eyebrows tightened. I have never spoken with those people. That is exactly why this document concerns me, the lawyer replied. Fabricated support. False statements. A story designed to make me appear incapable. I placed the pages back on the table. She is trying to convince the court I cannot manage my own life. Yes. And if she wins? You lose control of everything. The simplicity of that sentence carried enormous weight. House, savings, investments, even medical decisions. Guardianship would place my entire life under someone else's authority. My daughter's authority. The lawyer continued speaking. Courts take guardianship requests seriously. I understand that. But judges also look for signs of manipulation. The lawyer tapped the document lightly. This petition contains several weaknesses. What weaknesses? The timeline. I leaned forward. Explain. The petition claims you have shown declining judgment for months. That is not true. And the bank incident contradicts that claim. The realization came quickly. The cashier's intervention had created a documented moment proving I questioned the transfer. That shows awareness, the lawyer said. Yes. It shows you did not blindly sign. That detail could weaken my daughter's argument. But another concern remained. She listed a physician. I said. Yes. Could a doctor say I am incapable? Only after evaluation. I have never been evaluated. That is exactly what we will challenge. The lawyer placed another document on the table. We will request an independent medical assessment. Good. That assessment will help demonstrate your capacity. My mind felt clearer hearing that. Still, something else bothered me. My daughter sounded confident on the phone. Yes. She believed I had no choice. The lawyer nodded slowly. That confidence may come from believing her evidence is convincing, even if it is false. False evidence sometimes appears convincing until examined closely. That explanation made sense. The courtroom would become the place where each claim faced scrutiny. My daughter believed her plan was strong. Soon we would find out if that belief survived real examination. The lawyer stood and walked toward a shelf. Another folder appeared in their hands. This case will likely move quickly. How quickly? The initial hearing is scheduled for next week. Next week. The timeline felt alarmingly fast. So the judge will hear her claims soon. Yes. And we respond immediately. I sat quietly for a moment. My daughter had already placed our family conflict into a courtroom. There was no quiet conversation left to resolve this. The law would decide. The lawyer spoke again. There is something you should prepare for. What? Your daughter may appear emotional in court. Emotional? Yes. Guardianship cases often involve claims about concern and protection. Concern. Protection. Words that sound compassionate but can hide control. She might say she is only trying to help. That is common. And the judge will believe her. The judge will listen to both sides. My lawyer placed a reassuring hand on the table. The evidence matters more than performance. Evidence. That word brought my thoughts back to the bank. The cashier. The documents. The forged signature. Each piece of evidence slowly forming a clearer picture. Still, something else bothered me. The cashier heard my daughter mention court documents. Yes. That means she planned this hearing before the bank visit. Exactly. The lawyer looked directly at me. The transfer at the bank was meant to happen before the hearing. I understood immediately. If she already controlled my assets, the court case would appear unnecessary. But if the transfer failed, she would still attempt guardianship. Two different strategies. One goal. Control. My lawyer closed the folder. We prepare carefully. I nodded. Good. Because the next time I saw my daughter would not be inside a bank. It would be inside a courtroom. And when the hearing started, she would present a story about my life that sounded convincing. A story about a confused parent who needed help managing finances. But what she did not know was this. The judge would soon hear from the one person who interrupted her plan. The cashier who noticed something wrong. And that testimony would begin exposing a truth my daughter had tried very hard to hide. The courthouse stood taller than I remembered. I had passed that building many times over the years without imagining I would someday walk inside because of my own child. My lawyer walked beside me through the front doors. Stay calm, they said quietly. I am calm. That was mostly true. Anger had burned away days earlier, leaving something steadier behind. A quiet determination. Inside the courtroom hallway, people waited on long wooden benches. Lawyers moved between doors carrying folders and briefcases. My daughter stood near the far wall speaking with a man I immediately recognized. Her lawyer. The same name listed on the documents at the bank. She saw me before I reached the courtroom door. Our eyes met for a moment. There was no smile, no greeting, just a careful, calculated expression. The kind of expression someone wears during a negotiation rather than a family conversation. My lawyer guided me to our seats. We speak only when asked. They reminded me. I understand. The courtroom doors opened. The bailiff called the case number. We walked inside. The judge sat high above the room behind a large wooden desk. Papers rested in neat stacks beside them. Everyone stood briefly. Then we took our seats. My daughter sat across the room beside her lawyer. She looked calm. Too calm. As if she believed everything was already decided. The judge reviewed the file for several seconds before speaking. This hearing concerns a guardianship petition filed by the petitioner. That meant my daughter. The judge continued. The petition claims the respondent may be unable to manage financial and personal affairs. That meant me. My daughter's lawyer stood. Your Honor, the petitioner filed this request out of concern for their parents' well-being. Concern. There was that word again. The lawyer continued speaking smoothly. The respondent has recently shown signs of confusion regarding financial decisions. Confusion. Another carefully chosen word. The petitioner simply wishes to protect their parent from financial harm. Protect. Each word sounded compassionate on the surface. Yet every sentence pushed the same message. I could not manage my own life. My lawyer remained silent while the other side finished speaking. The judge looked toward my side of the courtroom. Does the respondent wish to reply? My lawyer stood calmly. Yes, Your Honor. They placed several documents on the desk in front of the judge. We will show that the respondent is fully capable of managing their affairs. The judge examined the papers. My lawyer continued. We will also show that the guardianship request follows a failed attempt to transfer the respondent's assets. That sentence caused movement across the courtroom. My daughter's lawyer shifted slightly. The judge looked up. Explain. My lawyer spoke clearly. 3 days before this petition was filed, the petitioner attempted to have the respondent sign documents transferring full financial control. The judge glanced toward my daughter. Is this correct? Her lawyer stood quickly. The petitioner simply offered assistance managing finances. My lawyer placed another document forward. The bank where this occurred documented the interaction. The judge read quietly. The courtroom remained silent except for the turning of paper. Then the judge looked up again. There was an attempted transfer of property and accounts. Yes, Your Honor. Did the respondent sign? No. The judge turned toward my daughter. Why did the respondent refuse? Her lawyer answered before she could speak. The respondent did not fully understand the document. There it was again. The claim of confusion. My lawyer responded immediately. A bank employee intervened because the respondent asked questions. The judge's attention sharpened. A bank employee intervened? Yes. My lawyer nodded toward the back of the courtroom. That employee is present today. The judge looked toward the door. Please call the witness. The bailiff stepped outside briefly. A moment later, the cashier entered the courtroom. The same calm person who had stood behind the bank counter. They walked to the witness stand and took the oath. My daughter's eyes followed them carefully. I noticed something new in her expression. Concern. The judge spoke. Please describe what happened during the attempted transaction. The cashier explained slowly and clearly. They described the documents. The transfer clause. My daughter encouraging me to sign quickly. And the moment I asked what the document actually meant. The judge listened carefully, then asked a simple question. Did the respondent appear confused? The cashier answered without hesitation. No. The word echoed across the quiet courtroom. No confusion was observed. My daughter shifted slightly in her seat. The cashier continued. The respondent asked reasonable questions. The judge nodded. That suggests awareness. Yes. The judge leaned back slightly. And the transfer would have given the petitioner full control of the respondent's assets. Yes. The judge looked toward my daughter again, then toward the documents on the desk. My lawyer stood once more. Your Honor, we also have evidence that documents supporting this transfer contain a forged signature. The entire courtroom became very still. My daughter's lawyer stood quickly. Objection. The judge raised a hand. Do you have proof? My lawyer placed another paper on the desk. A handwriting analysis submitted this morning. The judge reviewed it slowly. Across the room, my daughter's calm expression disappeared. For the first time since entering the courthouse, uncertainty appeared on her face. The judge looked up. This hearing is becoming more serious than a standard guardianship request. My lawyer nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The judge folded their hands together. I believe this matter requires deeper examination. The room remained silent as the judge spoke the next words. We will schedule a full evidentiary hearing. That meant the case was far from finished. In fact, it had just begun, because the next hearing would bring something far more damaging into the open. The messages my daughter sent to her lawyer months earlier. Messages explaining exactly how she planned to take control of everything I owned. The courtroom emptied slowly after the judge announced the evidentiary hearing. Lawyers gathered their files. People whispered quietly while leaving their seats. The heavy doors closed again behind the last visitor. My daughter remained seated across the room. Her lawyer leaned close and spoke to her in a low voice. The calm confidence she carried earlier was gone now. Something tighter had replaced it. Concern. Calculation. My lawyer touched my arm. We should leave. As we walked into the hallway, the lawyer spoke quietly. That hearing changed the direction of the case. How? The judge is no longer looking only at guardianship. What are they looking at? Possible fraud. Fraud. The word felt heavier now that it had been spoken inside a courtroom. We entered the conference room down the hall where my lawyer had arranged a meeting space. Several folders waited on the table. Something new arrived this morning, my lawyer said. They opened a laptop and turned the screen toward me. Emails appeared across the display. These came from a subpoena sent to the law office representing your daughter. I leaned closer. The messages showed conversations between my daughter and her lawyer during the past 4 months. My eyes stopped on the first message. My daughter had written, if the transfer is completed before the hearing, the court will not question anything. I felt my chest tighten. She had already been planning the guardianship case while preparing the bank transfer. My lawyer scrolled down. Another message appeared. We should move the money quickly after the transfer. My parent may change their mind. Change their mind. That sentence revealed something simple and painful. She already knew the plan would upset me. Another message appeared below it. Prepare the guardianship petition just in case. Just in case. 2 strategies. 1 goal. Control. My lawyer folded their arms. These messages show clear intent. Intent. A legal word with serious meaning. They prove the guardianship request was not about concern, my lawyer continued. It was about control. I looked again at the messages. Each one carried the tone of someone planning a financial operation, not a daughter worried about a parent. How did you obtain these? I asked. The court allowed limited document discovery after the judge heard the cashier's testimony. The cashier's decision to speak up had triggered a chain reaction. Evidence was now appearing faster than my daughter could control. My lawyer scrolled further. Another message appeared. This one felt colder than the others. If everything works, I can relocate overseas before any disputes start. Relocate overseas. With my money. The realization settled deeply. She had not planned to stay nearby. She had planned to disappear. My lawyer closed the laptop slowly. These messages will be presented at the next hearing. What will that do? They will weaken her credibility. Credibility. In court, credibility can decide everything. If the judge believes she planned deception, the guardianship request collapses. And the forgery? That becomes a separate legal issue. I nodded slowly. The case was expanding beyond a simple family disagreement. Forgery. Fraud. Attempted asset transfer. Now documented intent. Each layer made the situation more serious. My lawyer looked thoughtful. There is one more development. What is it? The bank filed its own internal report with financial regulators. That sounds serious. It is. The lawyer leaned forward. Financial institutions report suspected fraud automatically. So investigators may already be reviewing this. Yes. The room grew quiet. For months my daughter had believed she controlled every step of this plan. Now events were moving outside her control. Evidence was appearing. Witnesses were speaking. Investigators were watching. My lawyer spoke again. The next hearing will focus on 2 questions. What questions? Did you require guardianship? And the second? Did your daughter attempt to manipulate your finances? The second question felt far more dangerous for her. I looked toward the courthouse window. Outside, the afternoon sky looked calm. Inside the courtroom, a storm had already begun forming. My lawyer gathered the documents. The next witness will be interesting. Who? The realtor. The same realtor who called me days earlier. They received the property sale request, my lawyer said. And they also received a document claiming you approved the sale. My stomach tightened again. Another forged signature? Yes. My daughter had not created just one false document. She had created several, each one designed to move another piece of my life into her control. The lawyer closed the final folder. The more documents we examine, the more patterns appear. What kind of patterns? Planning. Months of preparation. Multiple forged signatures. Legal filings prepared in advance. Money transfer routes already selected. The picture forming in front of the court was becoming clearer. My daughter had not acted out of sudden frustration. She had built a system designed to quietly take everything I owned. But the next hearing would introduce something she had not predicted. Because the realtor who received her property sale request had saved every message she sent. And one of those messages contained a sentence that could change the entire case. A sentence explaining exactly why she believed I would never fight back. The second hearing began 1 week later. The courtroom felt different this time. More people filled the seats behind us. A few reporters sat near the back with notebooks open. Word had spread that the case involved possible financial fraud within a family dispute. My lawyer leaned closer before the judge entered. Stay calm. Today is about evidence. I nodded. Across the room, my daughter sat beside her lawyer again. She looked more tense than before. Her posture remained straight, but the calm confidence from the first hearing had disappeared. The bailiff announced the judge. Everyone stood. The judge reviewed the case file for a moment before speaking. This hearing will examine additional evidence related to the guardianship petition and alleged financial misconduct. The judge looked toward my lawyer. You may call your next witness. My lawyer stood. We called Daniel Harper. The courtroom door opened. The realtor who had called me earlier walked inside and took the witness stand. After the oath, my lawyer began the questions. Please state your occupation. I am a licensed real estate broker with Ridgeway Realty. Did you receive a request to list a property belonging to the respondent? Yes. When did that request arrive? 10 days ago. 10 days. That meant the listing request came before the failed bank transfer. My lawyer continued. Who submitted the request? The petitioner. He pointed toward my daughter. She avoided looking in his direction. Did the request include documentation? Yes. The realtor opened a folder. These were the documents submitted. The pages were handed to the judge. Even from where I sat, I recognized the shape of the signature at the bottom. My name, once again written in someone else's handwriting. My lawyer spoke again. Did the respondent ever contact you directly to approve the sale? No. Did you speak with the respondent before today? No. The judge looked at the documents carefully. This signature appears identical to the one referenced in the previous hearing. My lawyer nodded. That is correct. The judge turned toward the realtor. Was there any communication between you and the petitioner regarding urgency? Yes. The realtor opened another folder. I saved our email conversation. My daughter's lawyer shifted slightly in their seat. The realtor read from the printed message. The petitioner wrote that the property must be listed immediately. My lawyer asked the next question. Did the petitioner explain why the sale needed to happen quickly? Yes. The realtor hesitated briefly. What explanation was given? The realtor read the message again slowly. The petitioner wrote, My parent does not understand how much money they are wasting by keeping the property. A quiet murmur moved through the courtroom. My daughter stared down at the table. The realtor continued reading. There was another message sent later that evening. My lawyer nodded. Please read it. The realtor looked directly at the document. The petitioner wrote, Once the court grants guardianship, everything will move faster. The judge's attention sharpened immediately. My lawyer asked the most important question. Was that message sent before the guardianship petition was filed? Yes. That answer changed the tone of the room. The plan had been written in her own words. Guardianship first. Property sale second. My lawyer walked closer to the witness stand. Was there any other message that stood out? Yes. The realtor looked down again. There was one message that concerned me. The courtroom grew quiet. What message? My lawyer asked. The realtor read carefully. The petitioner wrote, My parent trusts me completely. They will sign anything if I say it is routine. The sentence echoed through the courtroom. I felt a strange weight settle inside my chest. Trust. The one thing I had given freely for years. And the one thing she had planned to use against me. The judge leaned back slowly. That statement suggests intentional manipulation. My lawyer nodded. Yes, Your Honor. My daughter's lawyer stood quickly. That message was taken out of context. The judge raised a hand. You will have an opportunity to respond. The courtroom quieted again. My lawyer returned to the table. That concludes our questions for this witness. The judge looked toward my daughter's lawyer. Your witness. The cross-examination began, but the energy had already shifted. The messages spoke for themselves. Each sentence written by my daughter formed a clear timeline. Months of preparation. Forged signatures. Plans to move assets quickly. A guardianship petition designed to remove my control. The realtor stepped down after the questioning ended. The judge studied the evidence again. Then the judge spoke slowly. This case now involves allegations beyond guardianship. My daughter looked up quickly. The judge continued. I am referring these documents to financial investigators. The words landed heavily. Financial investigators. The courtroom remained silent. My daughter's lawyer whispered something urgently to her. But the next words from the judge made the situation even more serious. Until the investigation is complete, the petitioner will have no authority over the respondent's assets. My daughter's shoulders stiffened. The plan she built for months had begun collapsing. But what she did not realize was this. The investigators had already found something far more damaging than forged signatures. A financial account that had been quietly opened in another country. An account waiting for a transfer that never happened. The third hearing took place 2 weeks later. By then the story had spread beyond the courthouse. 2 reporters sat quietly in the back row again. A financial investigator from the regulatory office sat near the front with a stack of files. My lawyer spoke softly before the judge entered. The investigation uncovered something serious. What did they find? I asked. An overseas account connected to your daughter. I felt a slow tightening in my chest. So the plan was real. Yes. The bailiff announced the judge. Everyone stood. Once the room settled, the judge looked toward the investigators seated near the front. This court received additional evidence from financial regulators. Please present your findings. The investigator walked to the witness stand. After taking the oath, they opened a thick folder. My office reviewed financial communications connected to this case. The judge nodded. Continue. We located a bank account opened 3 months ago in another country. 3 months. That timeline matched the early emails we had seen. The investigator continued. The account holder is the petitioner. My daughter shifted slightly in her chair. Was this account active? The judge asked. Yes. Was money transferred into it? No, the investigator paused briefly. But transfer instructions were prepared. My lawyer leaned forward slightly. What type of transfer? The investigator held up a document. A transfer authorization prepared for several $100,000. My savings. My retirement. The numbers written on that page represented everything I built over decades. The judge asked the next question. Where would those funds originate? From the respondent's financial accounts. The courtroom grew quiet. My daughter's lawyer stood quickly. There is nothing illegal about opening a foreign bank account. The investigator nodded. That is correct. But preparing a transfer using assets that do not belong to the account holder raises serious concerns. The judge examined the document carefully. Was the transfer scheduled? No, why not? The investigator answered calmly. The bank transaction that would have initiated the transfer was interrupted. Everyone in the room understood what that meant. The cashier. The simple moment when someone asked a question. Without that moment, the transfer might have already happened. The investigator continued. We also discovered communications between the petitioner and the foreign bank. The judge looked interested. What did those communications say? The investigator read from the document. The petitioner wrote, the transfer will happen once legal authority is secured. Legal authority. That meant the guardianship petition. My daughter had been waiting for the court to give her control. The judge asked another question. Was the bank aware of the dispute regarding ownership of these assets? No, they believed the petitioner had authorization. Yes. The investigator closed the folder slowly. That concludes the summary of our findings. The judge thanked the investigator and turned toward my daughter's lawyer. Do you wish to respond? The lawyer stood. Your Honor, opening an account and preparing financial plans does not prove wrongdoing. The judge listened quietly. The lawyer continued. The petitioner was attempting to organize finances responsibly. My lawyer stood immediately. Your Honor, the petitioner attempted to gain authority using forged documents. The judge nodded. That claim remains under examination. My lawyer placed another paper on the desk. This document shows the petitioner requesting a rapid transfer once guardianship was approved. The judge reviewed the page again. The courtroom remained silent. Finally, the judge spoke. This case now contains evidence of planned asset transfer, forged signatures, and a guardianship request supported by questionable claims. My daughter looked toward her lawyer again. The calm confidence she once carried had completely vanished. The judge continued speaking. Guardianship is designed to protect vulnerable individuals. The judge paused. It is not designed to remove financial control from competent adults. Those words felt powerful. For the first time since this situation began, I felt the balance shifting clearly. The judge leaned forward slightly. I am dismissing the guardianship petition. The sentence echoed across the room. My daughter's shoulders stiffened. The case she built for months collapsed in a single moment. But the judge was not finished speaking. Due to the evidence presented, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for review of possible criminal charges. Criminal charges. The words carried enormous weight. My daughter closed her eyes briefly. Her lawyer whispered something urgently beside her. The judge continued. The respondent retains full authority over all assets. I exhaled slowly. The control over my life remained mine. But the case was not completely finished. The judge looked toward me directly. You handled this situation with patience. I nodded respectfully. Thank you. The judge gathered the documents. This hearing is concluded. The gavel struck once. People began leaving the courtroom quietly. But as I stood up, my lawyer touched my arm. There is something else. What? The district attorney already reviewed part of the evidence. That was fast. Yes. My lawyer's expression remained serious. And they found one more document connected to the overseas account. What document? A contract. I frowned slightly. A contract for what? My lawyer answered quietly. A contract with a property buyer. My heart skipped once. A buyer for my house. Yes. The buyer had already signed the agreement. They had been waiting for the ownership transfer to finish. Waiting for my daughter to sell a house that was never hers to sell. And the date written on that contract revealed something even more shocking. She had planned to complete the sale only 2 days after the bank visit. The courthouse hallway felt strangely quiet after the hearing ended. Most people had already left. The reporters gathered their notebooks and walked outside. Lawyers moved quickly toward elevators. My lawyer and I remained near the courtroom door. You said there was a contract, I reminded them. Yes. They opened a thin folder and removed a printed document. This was recovered during the financial investigation. The paper looked like a standard real estate contract. Buyer information, property address, sale price. The address listed was mine. I scanned the page slowly. The buyer had already signed. The sale price was written clearly. Then I noticed the closing date. 2 days after the bank visit. My stomach tightened. She planned to sell the house almost immediately. Yes, my lawyer said quietly. That is why the bank transfer was so urgent. The sequence became painfully clear. Bank transfer first. Property ownership next. House sale immediately after. Money transferred overseas. Within days, everything I owned could have vanished. My lawyer pointed to another section. Look here. A signature line appeared under the seller section. My name, again written in someone else's handwriting. Another forged signature. That makes 3, I said slowly. Possibly more. My lawyer closed the folder. The buyer believed the property was legally available. Were they involved in the scheme? No, they thought everything was legitimate. I nodded slowly. The buyer had been waiting for a transaction built on deception. My lawyer continued. The district attorney reviewed this contract this morning. What does that mean? They now have evidence showing the full timeline of the plan. The timeline was simple. Months of preparation, multiple forged documents, an attempted bank transfer, a guardianship petition, a property sale already scheduled, each piece connected to the next. We walked slowly toward the courthouse exit. Halfway down the hallway, we saw my daughter standing alone near a window. Her lawyer was gone. She looked different now. The calm confidence from earlier weeks had completely disappeared. She watched us approach. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then she said quietly, "You won." I stopped walking. This was never about winning. Her eyes dropped toward the floor. I was trying to help. The sentence sounded weak now. The courtroom evidence had stripped away the explanations. You forged my name, I said. You tried to sell my house. Her shoulders stiffened slightly. You would not understand. I understand perfectly. She looked up again. You have more money than you need. That sentence revealed the thinking behind everything. Numbers, assets, calculations, not family. I spoke slowly. You believed I would never fight back. She hesitated. You always trusted me. Yes, that was true. Trust had been the foundation of our relationship for decades, and it had nearly destroyed me. I trusted you because you were my child, I said. She looked away. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke again. I thought I could fix everything quickly. By taking everything, I was going to build a better life. For who? I asked quietly. She did not answer. The hallway remained silent. My lawyer stepped forward gently. We should go. I nodded. As we walked away, I heard her voice behind me. You ruined everything. I stopped for a second, but did not turn around. Because the truth was very different. She had ruined something far more valuable than money. Trust. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon air felt cool and calm. My lawyer spoke as we walked toward the parking lot. The district attorney will review the case for possible charges. What happens next? That process may take time. I nodded. After months of tension, the fight was slowly coming to an end. But my lawyer added one more sentence. There is something else you should know. What? The bank employee who stopped the transfer. The cashier. Yes. They received recognition from the bank's corporate office. Recognition felt like a small word for what they had done. They saved more than money, I said. Yes. They saved my home, my independence, my future. But the story was not finished yet. Because later that evening my phone rang again. The caller ID displayed the bank's number. I answered. The voice on the other end belonged to the cashier. "I wanted to tell you something." "What is it?" There was another document attached to the transfer paperwork. My heart tightened again. Another document? Yes. What did it say? The cashier paused briefly before answering. It named a secondary beneficiary. A strange chill moved through me. A secondary beneficiary? Yes. And the name listed there was not your daughter. The sentence hung in the silence between us. Someone else had been waiting to receive control of everything. And I had never heard that name before in my life. The cashier's words stayed in my mind long after the phone call ended. A secondary beneficiary. Someone else connected to the transfer documents. Someone I had never heard of before. The next morning, I met my lawyer again. The cashier mentioned another name. I said as soon as I entered the office. My lawyer looked up immediately. "What name?" "I do not know yet. They only said the transfer paperwork listed another beneficiary." My lawyer opened a file quickly. "If that is true, the situation becomes even more serious." "Why?" "Because that would mean your daughter was not acting alone." The idea felt unsettling. For months, I believed this plan came from one person, my daughter. But another name meant another influence. Another mind helping design the plan. My lawyer picked up the phone and called the bank manager. The conversation lasted only a few minutes. Then my lawyer hung up and looked toward me. The cashier was correct. There was another name? Yes. My stomach tightened slightly. Who? My lawyer slid a document across the desk. The printed page came from the bank transfer packet. Two names appeared in the beneficiary section. The first was my daughter. The second name appeared beneath it. I stared at the letters slowly. The name belonged to the lawyer who represented her. The room became completely silent. Her lawyer. The same person who stood beside her in court. The same person who filed the guardianship petition. Their name appeared as the secondary beneficiary of my assets. "That cannot be legal," I said quietly. "It is not," my lawyer answered. "This changes everything." The meaning became clear. If the transfer had happened, control of my property would not have gone only to my daughter. Her lawyer would also receive authority, a financial interest hidden inside legal paperwork. My lawyer continued speaking. This explains why the plan moved so quickly. The lawyer representing my daughter had not simply been advising. They had been participating. The plan had two beneficiaries, two people waiting for control of everything I owned. My lawyer opened another folder. The financial investigators already suspected something unusual. "What do you mean?" "They noticed several communication patterns between your daughter and her attorney." "Planning messages?" "Yes. But now the motive becomes clearer." My lawyer pointed toward the document again. "A lawyer who stands to benefit financially cannot represent a client in that matter." So the entire legal strategy was compromised. Yes. The conflict of interest was enormous. A lawyer secretly listed to receive control of assets. A guardianship petition designed to make it happen. Forged documents used to move the process faster. The full picture finally made sense. My daughter may have believed she was solving financial problems, but someone else had helped build the strategy. Someone with legal knowledge. Someone who understood how to manipulate paperwork and timing. My lawyer leaned back slowly. "This discovery will interest the district attorney." "I imagine it will." Because the plan was no longer just family betrayal. It had become organized financial fraud. My lawyer gathered the documents carefully. "I will send this to the investigators immediately." A quiet moment passed. Then I asked a question that had been forming in my mind. "Do you think my daughter understood what she was doing?" My lawyer thought for several seconds before answering. She probably believed she was following professional advice. That explanation felt possible. Influence can be powerful when it comes from someone claiming expertise. But the responsibility still remains hers, my lawyer added. Yes, the choices she made were still hers. The forged signatures, the deception, the plan to sell the house. All of it. The meeting ended quietly. Outside the office, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt calm. The truth had come out piece by piece. A bank visit, a suspicious cashier, a stopped signature, each small moment exposing a much larger plan. Later that evening, I received one final message from the bank. The cashier had been formally honored by the bank's leadership for protecting a client from financial exploitation. I smiled when I read that message, because the story might have ended very differently without that one person paying attention. A single question changed everything. "Please wait. Something is wrong." Those words protected my home, my independence, my future, and they revealed a lesson I never expected to learn at 55 years old. Trust should never replace awareness, even inside a family. Before I end this story, there is one thing I want to say to anyone listening. If you ever feel pressure to sign something quickly, pause. Read every line. Ask questions. And never allow anyone to rush your decisions. Because sometimes the smallest moment of hesitation can protect everything you have built in your life. If this story made you think or helped you understand something new, consider subscribing and watching the next story on this channel. You never know which story might protect someone else from losing everything.